of the Human Relations Commission. Thank you all for being here. We'll start with roll call.
Commissioner Piketty. Commissioner Chen.
Here.
Commissioner Ezron.
Here.
Commissioner Orion.
She's here, but in the back.
Commissioner Onan.
Here.
Commissioner Savage. Commissioner Stone.
Is also here, but in the back.
Make sure the notes reflect that.
Hi, Mayor Shepherd.
It's supposed to be a night off.
Aren't you in the other meeting?
It's canceled. First night of
Tonight's
Passover.
Passover.
Oh, how great. So they're passing over you. That's wonderful. Oh. And Commissioner Stone. He's here.
Oh, Commissioner
There he is.
Stone. Didn't I say that?
Yeah, she did.
Are you celebrating Passover? Yeah, a lot of staff does.
All right. So do we have any agenda changes, requests, or deletions?
I know.
All right, I think we're good there. Do we have any oral communications from the public? No cards have been turned in? All right. And then next, let's move to our first item of business, the approval of the minutes. Amy had emailed them out to us. Does anyone have any changes, corrections to the
I
minutes?
didn't send them out.
I got some.
Probably the final ones from February. They were part of the,
Oh,
they're
okay.
on the table.
Oh,
But
okay.
the March ones are not finished yet.
Okay, no, I got some in the email packet that you sent, so I thought those were the ones.
No, those were the final from February.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I confirm that.
Okay.
Phantom minute.
Phantom minutes, okay. All right, then let's move on to our first speakers for the evening, which are Mila, and is Philip here too? Is it just you tonight? All right. Mila Zoka from Envision Shelter Network. Please come up and join us. If you want to come sit here with us. Yeah, and we can.
Second.
How are you?
Good. So my understanding. So Mila is here tonight to update us on some recent changes to the programs over at Envision Shelter Network. Envision is one of the HISRAP grantees that the HRC works with, and so we're always very curious to hear what's going on with our grantees, and so Mila's very kindly come here this evening to update us. So Mila, go ahead and take it away.
Sure, and I apologize in advance. I'm going to be looking at my notes because Philip is not here this evening, but we wanted to share with all of you some changes. They're modest changes that we've been making to our program in the Opportunity Services Center, which is the first floor drop-in center at the OC. And we've been observing our programs over the last 8 months or so, and thinking about how we can increase engagement of the homeless population with case management. And we've been looking at all of the programs, including the Breaking Bread Hot Meal program and the Food Closet, Hotel de Zinc. And the drop-in center at the OC has about 115 people that use it per day. And many of them do have case management, active case management files, but there's a big chunk that doesn't and comes to hang out and uses the lockers and the showers and has snacks, but doesn't necessarily engage in case management. So in January and February, we started to put together a plan to see if we could increase engagement. And actually, about a week ago, we implemented the plan. We had been telling clients about it since sometime in March, early March. So it wasn't a surprise to the folks who use the OC. Let me back up here. So the goal is to enhance the outcomes of the Opportunity Center, the drop-in portion, and increase the numbers of individuals who are moving from homelessness to permanent housing and self-sufficiency. So in order to increase participation and engagement in case management, we decided to set up a program track. So before, you could just come in and use the space and you weren't necessarily in a track, but we created 3 tracks. One is a guest track, which is predominantly for folks who have a disability or a diagnosis that makes them too ill to participate in a program in a measurable way. So the services that they would normally receive are not going to be changed at all. And then we have folks who are in case management. They're in the program track, what do we call? Yeah, just program. And then the middle one is what we're calling a social track. And those are for folks who have declined case management. And so we know that there are clients who decline case management, but we're really motivated to see how we can get them to actually get into a program. So we're starting with the default of everyone's in program track or guest, and unless you decline. And then if you decline case management, there are reduced, it's not reduced services, but there's some of the perks are taken away, but you're targeted for increased engagement. So we're sort of identifying who's not really wanting to really change their situation and then really focusing on how do we get them to be more involved. So kind of looking at the numbers, so 115 clients per day, 15 of those are usually Hotel de Zinc clients who do get intensive case management as part of being in Hotel de Zinc. And then we had 40 or so clients that do have case management, but only a portion of them were using it intensively. About 25 were not. It was just sort of they were coming in as needed. And if you live upstairs in the Opportunity Center, you're not required to have case management. We can't force you to get involved with case management. So it was really like as an as-needed basis. But now with this program tracking, if you walk through the front doors of the drop-in portion, you are asked to be part of this program track. And the 60 or so remaining people, those are the folks that we're really trying to focus on making sure they're all in the program track. We have 4 case managers that are at the OC. One is dedicated for families, and so that makes it about 20 people per case manager that's getting added on to their caseload. But as I mentioned, their caseload might have had people on there that weren't really actively involved. We do have concerns that it would make for ratios of case managers to clients that were not ideal, but we have a wonderful new program with the Stanford Medical School that has just started. Let me get the name right here. It's the Stanford Health for America partnership. It's a mentorship program. It's 2 interns for over 6 months that are going to be working closely with our team and our clients to make sure that they're getting preventative medicine and exercise. And this is in conjunction with our existing mental health intern program that we have across our entire organization. And the mental health intern program are PhD students who are getting their degrees from UCSF for clinical psychology. So they get their hours by meeting with our clients. So we do have other resources that we're bringing in to help with this added programming that we're doing. And some recent success stories, we've had 3 of our drop-in clients secure SSDI insurance, Social Security Disability Insurance, and move into permanent supportive housing in a property that we master lease. Many of you actually visited that program when you, that facility when you came in did some tours with us. And 6 clients found employment. And we have 11 clients that received eyeglasses and eye exams and that sort of thing. So there's some nice things happening with that. But mostly I just wanted to share with you guys that we're trying to think critically about how we can increase engagement with the population that we serve here in Palo Alto. Agency-wide, there's been some nice developments. We had an anonymous donor step forward at the beginning of the year and donate funding for a 2-year position for a food innovation manager. And so we've hired Mark Farhat, and I believe he started mid-February or so. And he's looking at how our agency sources, delivers, serves food across all of our sites. And so I know he was at the grocery outlet when it opened, because that's one of our new partners here in town that are donating and made a pledge to donate food every week to the Opportunity Center. But he's going to be looking at all of the different partnerships that we have, including Second Harvest Food Bank, among all the different stores and corporate entities that work with us as well. And we're part of the larger conversations in nearby communities. We have a proposal to expand our Maple Street shelter in Redwood City that's being considered, and it hasn't been approved, but it's been recommended for approval to double that capacity, almost double, from 75 beds to 140. And we're part of conversations in Sunnyvale and San Jose around inclement weather as well. So, and if any of you have any questions or want to see more places, I'd be happy to tour all of you. But really, it was just to share that we're sort of bringing a more nuanced eye to what happens on that first floor of the Opportunity Center. So, thank you.
Do any commissioners have questions or comments for Mila? Mila, I did want to ask, when you mentioned that certain perks might be taken away, so what kind of, you were talking about the carrot, so what's the stick?
Well, it's not really set up to be punitive, but it's something simple. Like, I know there are 2 people that have declined since the program has gone into effect about a week or 10 days ago. And it goes from the 8 o'clock start time to 9:30 start time. So you're still welcome to come in and have snacks and participate, but you're not necessarily going to have first choice of the snacks that are brought, that sort of thing. And then there's other things, like the folks who are in the program track are actively involved with chores at the facility, and it's to have skin in the game and serve as a motivational force. So folks who are in the social track aren't doing those things, so peer pressure. So.
I appreciate the report, and I think you guys are doing great work. Get unhoused people on a track towards independence is not work for the faint-hearted. And this sounds very creative and imaginative, and good luck. I hope it works out, and more go from the social track to the program track.
Well, I imagine in several weeks or a couple months, Philip will be here to tell you how it's going as well. He'll be able to speak more specifically on the clinical successes and challenges. So, thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
You talked about getting homeless into permanent residence. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of permanent residence they got into?
Sure. So, well, these 3 individuals have moved into an apartment building that our organization has a master lease for many of the apartments in the building. I believe there are 50 units overall, and we have control over 33 of them. I'm not sure. But as a part of that property, there is a room that's dedicated as a Second Harvest Food Bank drop-off for the clients who are there and that sort of thing. So they're apartments, and they're tenants, and they live in their apartment as they would under any other circumstances. But because it's supportive housing, there is a case manager that's on site and that comes and checks on them and makes sure that they're not having any issues around taking medication or issues with employment, whatever it may be.
Well, sounds very good. Thank you.
So, oh, sure, go ahead, Commissioner Warren.
I'm following up a little bit on what Commissioner Chen was saying, which is, what about the jobs? Like, can you give us an idea of the kinds of employment that they have? Are we talking jobs that are permanent, not permanent, any security?
I can't speak to these the 6 people that found employment in the last quarter, the specifics. But I know that, for example, we've got a great relationship with IKEA. IKEA employs many of our graduates. I don't know if the jobs are 28 hours to 40 hours. I don't know the specifics, but oftentimes we'll start with an employer at the 28-hour mark to show that our clients are capable of holding that employment to earn the trust, and then they're able to move through. So, I know Target is a good partner of ours. Safeway is a great partner of ours.
Mila, I wanted to ask you, it sounded like the impetus for the change in the programming was that you had a certain cohort of people who were sort of coming in and using the OC, but then not really staying engaged with it and not really furthering or changing their own situation, and that this tracking program was sort of designed to get people more focused on substantial change and more integrated into the services that the OC offers. So the folks that live on site, though, since they're not required to have case management, do you have an analogous or corollary type of program in mind for them at some point, or how does that work?
Well, they're welcome to be part of this effort. If they come in through the drop-in center, they're just like anybody else using the drop-in center. If I wanted to go to the drop-in center, I would be in the same tracking. So it's open to Palo Altans, and folks in the community can come use it. The impetus for us was really sort of still working through a merger that we had in July of 2012, where we're looking at our programs and seeing how we can make them better. So I know our leadership team has been meeting on and off since September or October, but then focusing specifically on Palo Alto the last couple of months.
So any other comments or questions from Mila? All right, if not, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you,
here.
everyone.
Really appreciate it. And say hi to Philip for
Sure,
us.
I will.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So our next agenda item is to a continuation of our learning series on affordable housing. And I'm going to ask Minka, I know.
Oh.
I was just thinking that. So I'll ask Minka to introduce our guest speaker for the evening.
If Tom
and
can
invite him to come forward.
up and sit at the table as well. I first met Tom when I was working with the city's Family Resources Program. There was the Family Resources Foundation, and Tom was a member of that and served faithfully for many years, really. And I've heard him speak before about Stevenson House. He has a real passion for what he does and the residents there. I told Amy before we go, and that Tom is a great storyteller. I remember vividly a lot of the story he's told about the residents there. So he's a very passionate person about what he does. And maybe you could tell a little bit more about how long you've been there and so forth. But thank you for being able to come tonight and speak to us about senior housing.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak with you. I did bring some brochures on Stevenson House here so that we can, I'm not sure I brought enough, but we can share those with everybody. It gives kind of an idea of what Stevenson House is, its purpose, its importance, and some of the programs that we provide to our seniors. I think one of the most important aspects of Stevenson House is that it's affordable housing for low-income seniors. And if Stevenson House did not exist, if it went away for whatever reason, there would be approximately 140 people who are there right now who would have very few options, especially in an area like this where the housing expense is so high. But Stevenson House is much more than an apartment complex. It's much more than a place to hang your hat. It's really a home. It's a home that people are proud of. It's a home that is basically a community of residents who watch out for one another, care for one another, come bang on my door if there's an issue that they see. For instance, if they're at dinner time and someone who's always there is not there all of a sudden, or if someone is showing a change, a drastic change, they will be at my door telling me about it, and we will find a way to respond. My background is I was hired as the executive director of Stevenson House 7 years ago, but I'm a social worker, and that's good and that's bad. It's good in the sense that I notice an awful lot of things that go on to make this place a community, make it safe. It's bad, and my president of the board mentioned this to me the other day, that he said, well, you have to choose which hat you're wearing. If someone doesn't pay their rent for 6 months, you've got to realize that you're also a director of this place, and you have to respond appropriately. So, in speaking about needs of Stevenson House and what the most needs are, those of us who have, I guess are older, realize that there are a lot of issues that come to the fore. And one of the main things is loss of mobility. I remember playing basketball with my son the last time I tried this, and I jumped and I didn't get off the ground. So luckily I can still beat him in chess. But there are a great many losses that seniors face. Health is one thing, hearing, eyesight, memory, mobility, inability to drive, or loss of a job, loss of the family moves out, and your role as a parent is gone, and all of a sudden your world becomes smaller and smaller, and sometimes what happens is depression sets in. And if depression sets in, then isolation sets in. And then all of the issues that can really have a negative impact on the quality of life take over. So, sitting in a place like Stevenson House, especially as the director of Stevenson House, the question always comes up, how do you respond to this? How do you provide excitement? How do you provide growth so people feel that they're here for a purpose? How do you provide celebrations of anniversaries, of births of the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren? How do you do all of that in a way that is not patronizing, but is recognizing the dignity and the respect that these residents need, and that's an ongoing struggle. We talk about the amenities that we provide at Stevenson House to keep people active and keep them involved. We have a meal program, 5 evenings a week. We have an arrangement with the Unitarian Church and with Kiwanis Club, and they come in once a quarter and they put on a Saturday lunch. So that folks have something to eat on a weekend if they're by themselves. All of the apartments do have kitchens, a stove, fridge, and so forth, and sink. But I remember my dad when he was in his 70s, and well before he was in his 70s. I mean, he could not find the spoons, much less prepare a dinner for himself. So it's important that we have the meal program at Stevenson House, and that we have organizations such as Kiwanis and the Unitarian Church that try to extend that meal program to 6 days a week when possible. We have an exercise program that we partially purchased from the YMCA, and they donate part of it for us, and a group of our seniors come down religiously on Tuesdays and Thursdays and participate in these gentle exercises for seniors. We have a nurse that comes in once a week, provides basically advice, someone to talk to about the medication and side effects and so forth, and when it's time really to see a doctor. We had a social worker last year for a year until our funding ran out. And one of the questions that Minka mentioned to me was, well, what's your greatest need? And I think the greatest need is for a social worker, someone to be available who does not wear a hat like I do as the executive director, because you can't really be a social worker providing counseling if you also have the hat of the social worker. The social worker was wonderful. She was bicultural, a Chinese-American young woman with her master's degree in social work. Many of our residents are Chinese, many of whom don't speak any English at all, and they have issues. And in addition to the language issues, there's the cultural issues. Sometimes you offer someone assistance and you're offending them by the way you offer assistance. To have someone who's bicultural to be able to say, no, Tom, that's not the way you do it. This is the way you do it. Let me handle it. It's very encouraging and helpful. We had a tragedy last week. We had a suicide, and I think the question that is most important is, could it have been avoided? Is there anything we could have done if we had a social worker? And now, in the aftermath of it, what can we do with the residents who are very upset by the loss of someone who was a key member of Stevenson House? So those are the, I guess, the points I wanted to make. We certainly do have a waiting list, various waiting lists. Depends on which, if you're subsidized or if you're not subsidized, and some are longer than others. Sometimes people can just walk in and find an apartment. So it all depends on the situation. I would like to answer any questions if you have about Stevenson House, about and if not, I can answer the, I think one of the final questions of how does the city provide more affordable housing for seniors? And I think we look at a situation like the recent situation of Maybell, and we learn from it, so that we don't get rocks thrown at us when we try to provide affordable housing. Learn what we can learn, and put those lessons to effect, so that when we try to produce this type of housing, that we receive support from the community rather than the opposite. So that's what my hope, and certainly I would try to help in any way possible to bring that about.
Thank you, Tom. That was excellent. Do any of my commissioners have questions or comments? Teresa, looks like you do.
You mentioned there are a lot of Chinese elderly who live in Stevenson House, right? And then there are cultural differences between them, right? And then, do you have any program to, like a culture program in teaching them or make them understand, and the Western culture and the Eastern culture are different, and make them understand the way we operate in the society, maybe different what they're thinking about?
No, it's very interesting. I used to say we have a large number of Chinese residents, but the reaction when I say that is that, well, all the Chinese residents share a common background and share a common heritage, and what I found out is that we have mainland Chinese, we have Taiwan, we have Hong Kong, we have communist background, we have non-communist, and we have the revolution, and so forth. So it's like 6, 7 or more cultures within the culture. It's been very difficult for us to provide. What we've done is we've tried to provide translations so that the Chinese residents, and also the Russian residents, we have a good number of Russian residents, that they can understand what's happening at a meeting, and can respond and bring their issues to the fore. But it's always a difficult process, and we just purchased a translation machine, so that I have a Chinese translator and a Russian translator, and the folks have earphones so that we can have a live translation. But as far as cultural training, no, we haven't been able to do that.
I think that would be very important and interesting to do, to promote communications between even different backgrounds of Chinese,
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, different backgrounds, because this communication is most important.
You're absolutely true.
Are there other comments and questions? Commissioner Moore, please go ahead.
I find it fascinating that you would say, so what percentage, you said 140 people or total?
Total.
And what percentage are immigrants or as you were saying before, there's a immigrant population of Chinese and Russian. And part of my reason for asking that is I'd never thought about that before. I always think of senior communities, here at least, of being waiting lists that are long periods of time so that they would to some extent exclude immigrant communities.
What happens with a lot of our residents is that they are the parents of adult children who work at Stanford, work at Hewlett-Packard, work at Google, work at the various organizations in the community. And as the parents get older, the adult children, try to bring mom and dad close so that they can be in the area, in the community with them. And that's how many of our residents from other countries have come to us. All of them are citizens or legal residents of the United States. But what I've seen, when I first arrived 7 years ago, I thought that the Russian population would really increase, and I was seeing that for the first couple of years. But in the last 4 years, it's been basically the Chinese residents that have come more and more, and I'm fairly certain that in 5 years or so we'll probably be 50% Chinese residents. But again, they have a relationship with the community because of their children who live in the community or work in the community, and that's how they arrive at Stevenson House.
Just one more question. Go ahead. What is there an average longevity there? Like, is it when you get there, and do they live there for the rest of their lives? Is that it?
The description of Stevenson House is a home for independent living. Now, we stretch and we bend that, and folks, and the way they define independent living is that if you can take care of yourself, or with the help of a caregiver that you bring in, then you're considered independent. So the minimum age of entering Stevenson House is 62. Some people stay for over 20, 25 years. Our age range goes from 62 to 63, and our oldest resident is 101, and everything in between. And up to a year ago, we had another lady who was 101, and she would run circles around me. So the disability doesn't depend on the age.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Mesrin?
Yes, a couple of questions. First, can you maybe refresh my memory? Is Stevenson House independent, or are you part of a larger organization with other properties? That's the first question. The second one is, can you give us an idea of the range for rents?
Stevenson House is a private, nonprofit organization. It's a standalone 501c3. That's the nonprofit IRS category. And we've been around for 45 years, and basically through HUD, Housing and Urban Development, gave us a 50-year loan to build the 3 buildings. I often say I could probably buy the doorknobs now with $1,600,000. And the second question was?
What's about rents? How much is the rent? What's the range?
There are 2 types of apartments. One, studio apartments of various sizes, and it goes from about 300 square feet, which is the smallest, up to about maybe 400 square feet. And there are 1-bedroom apartments that go to about maybe 500 square feet, all of them. To rent, if the room is subsidized, you would pay 30% of your income, whatever that is. So if let's say you have $1,000 in Social Security and that's all you have, you pay $300, and either the Housing Authority or or HUD would pay the other $1,000 or $1,200, whatever they say the room or apartment is worth. Now, if you're unsubsidized, a studio apartment would go for about $590, and a 1-bedroom would go for about $690, $691, something in that area.
Okay. The purpose of my first question was also to maybe understand if it's a challenge now to be just by yourself, independent, or because maybe there's might be a trend of consolidation in this area where it might be easier to manage multiple properties and it could become more efficient. I just want to have your perspective on that.
My perspective is that it's certainly it's a possibility. It's an opportunity that I think the board would seriously take a look at if one were to surface, and it made sense that we could provide a better service and to more people. And it's on the table. I mean, we do look at that, and it hasn't appeared yet as a possibility, but it's there, and it's something that we could work on in the future.
Okay.
Tom, I have a question. What is the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized? In other words, how does one become eligible for a subsidy?
There are two types of subsidies. One is called project-based, which means that a resident moves into a room that is subsidized. If that resident moves out, the subsidy stays with Stevenson House, and the person moves someplace else. Okay, there are other subsidies that the Housing Authority provides. It's called Housing Choice Vouchers. So a person would go to the Housing Authority in Santa Clara County and would get a voucher, and their list is 50,000 long. And you eventually bubble up to the top of it. And they get a voucher, but that voucher stays with the person. The person comes with the voucher, uses it, and then when they leave, they take it with them. So those are the two kinds of vouchers that we have. And so if you go to the Housing Authority, you apply. You apply for the voucher. If you come to Stevenson House and you're on the waiting list and you get called because there's a vacancy, if that room is subsidized, you move into that subsidy.
So I guess I'm puzzled, though, is what makes a person or senior eligible for a subsidy? And I'm also puzzled by your scenario that they are the parents of Silicon Valley professionals who I assume are getting paid fairly well. So how are these seniors eligible for subsidized housing?
The income of a child, of an adult child, is not counted as income of the parent. Okay, so the parents are basically on their own, and
So what makes them eligible? For example, I know a lot of seniors that are basically being driven out of Palo Alto because the rents have skyrocketed.
Right.
They're saying there's nowhere to go. So are they eligible? I mean, what makes someone eligible? I don't quite understand.
There are only two eligibility criteria that we have. One is age, 62 or above, or with somebody who's 62 or above, and the other is income. So HUD will tell us that the maximum income for you to qualify to live at Stevenson House is, if it's an unsubsidized room, it's something like $40,000, $45,000 if you're alone, and then if you're with a couple, it's somewhat higher than that. So those are the qualifications for living at Stevenson House. Now I know some seniors have come to us to move in, and they're between their pension and their even if they're working, they're just above, and they don't qualify. And I think the unsubsidized is probably $58,000 for an individual.
Are there additional questions or comments for Tom? Oh yes, go ahead, Commissioner Stone.
Yeah, you mentioned wait list. How long's the wait list? How many people, and typically how long does it take for one to be on the wait list to get off?
It depends on the type of waiting list. The Housing Authority waiting list, when folks go to the Housing Authority, that's a very large, huge waiting list, 50,000 or something like that. Okay, so that, we don't even think about that. Those folks come to us when they have their voucher in hand. Okay, our subsidized apartments we have about 90 on that list. We opened it up a couple of years ago, and then within a day or two we had over 100 people on it, so we closed it, and now we're working on that list. How long it takes? We have a turnover of approximately 12 apartments a year that turn over for one reason or another. So if you're on the list, if you're number 80, it's going to take a while, but it doesn't always work that way, because what happens is if an apartment becomes available, you call the first person on the list, and that person already has found an apartment. So you go to number 2. Number 2 says, well, I'm not ready, my daughter's getting married. Number 3 has a reason, number 4 has a reason, and so forth. So all of a sudden you could be down to number 10 and number 12. So just knowing where you are on the waiting list doesn't give an accurate picture, but if you're, I know people that have been on the waiting list for a couple of years now, waiting to move up to the top. The one bedrooms are more difficult because it seems like folks never leave the one bedrooms. And if they're in if it's a couple that lives there and a spouse passes away, we don't ask the spouse to move out. It would just add another loss to the first loss. So we have several one bedrooms with just one person in it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tom, also I had a question about the social worker aspect that you mentioned. So you said there was a young woman who was Chinese American, and but she's not with you full time, or she was only for a brief period of time, or could you explain that again?
I was able to go to the Palo Alto Community Fund and apply for funding, and we pulled some funding from our own contributions, and I was able to put together a budget for a 15-hour a week social worker. We paid her about $20 an hour without benefits, and she was outstanding. She received a job offer from Avenidas and moved over to Avenidas, which is a wonderful place for her to be because she has a great many skills. And again, the intercultural aspect, she could be extremely beneficial over there. So she is now over at Avenidas at the Rose Kleiner Center in Mountain View. And I'm trying to find adequate funding so that we don't just cobble something together and then lose another person in less than a year. Right.
Oh, Commissioner Bacchetti?
I've known Tom for a number of years, and I think that one of the things that can be said about him is extraordinarily shrewd, in a good sense. That as he's sort of described now in a matter-of-fact way, places like Stevenson House are very hard to keep going, and there's no natural momentum. It's every day has to be kind of recreated, either with the funds or the waiting list or programs or renovations or whatever. So it's very complex work, and what Mila said earlier about the first floor of the Opportunity Center and getting people who drop in to sort of change their perspective and move forward in their lives to become independent, that also is very difficult work, takes a lot of luck, a lot of insight, a lot of people being in the right place at the right time. And so I think that we're lucky to have him and Stevenson House in Palo Alto. And I wish we had a lot more, because as we get to be an older and older community, there's not much senior housing, low, very low, even extremely low income housing. And the vouchers you're talking about are Section 8 vouchers?
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, they are not being created now. The sequester kind of put a stop on them. And I don't know if the list is 50,000, but it's at least 25,000.
Mm-hmm.
And not a fast-moving list since no new ones are being created. So we're lucky to have that there, but that won't be a source for other housing units in Palo Alto. So to create more, we'll have to create the way to pay for the expenses of the residents in ways that now are covered by HUD and then through the county and so on. But I just want to thank you and congratulate you for your extraordinary work in keeping Stevenson House going and healthy and renewed and refreshed and being a resource to the community.
Thank you, Ray. I appreciate that.
Oh, of course. Mayor Shepherd, please go ahead. And do you want to share the microphone?
First off, I think your grounds are spectacularly beautiful. You really have done a nice job of keeping, it in really good, high-quality shape. I think there's a garden that the residences make and stuff. But I was surprised a couple years ago to hear then you were only doing one meal a week. So has that, now you're saying you're trying to do it for 6 days a week. The Kiwanis was just doing one meal, but all of the meals that you had originally been able to provide, all of the funding for that had dried up. And so now you basically have to work with volunteer organizations to get the meal. Could you elaborate on that? Because it concerns me nutritionally for the seniors. And obviously the support that you're getting from Kiwanis and church organizations is critical for some of those gaps that you are, but I just wanted to understand better, because I hear this repeated with other senior centers, that food is really, and you have a lovely kitchen and a dining room, and I think a kitchen and a dining room should be active and not just there. So could you just tell me a little bit more about how that's going?
The way the meal program functions at Stevenson House is that when Stevenson House started in 1968, there was a requirement that in order to if you wished to live at Stevenson House, you needed to participate in the meal program. So folks would pay their rent, and they would pay a fee for the meal program over and above their rent. And that's how it has been until, about 4 or 5 years ago, when the Housing Authority said if a resident has a voucher or has a subsidy from the Housing Authority in Santa Clara County, the meal program was optional. They did not have to participate in it. Now remember, each apartment has a kitchen. Also remember my father, okay? So overnight, approximately, 25, 30 residents decided that they were going to drop out of the meal program. I still have the cost to pay for the chef, the assistant chef, the dishwasher, the servers, and so forth. And I lost about $30,000 overnight in the budget. Council on Aging used to give us about $1,000, $1,200 a month to subsidize the meal program. And about three and a half years ago, they stopped doing that. So I lost $12,000, $13,000 a year from that budget. So now what we're trying to do is to cover the costs of the meal program with what the remaining residents who participate pay for the meal each month, plus what we can gain, what we can raise through our contributions. There are 5 meals a week, dinner meals, and it's always been a dinner meal. It's never been more than breakfast or lunch. And because of the Unitarian Church and Kiwanis, we've been able to add that 6th day quarterly. So each organization does that quarterly. So 8 times a year we have a Saturday lunch that supplements what we do during the week. Is that clear to you?
Yeah, that's clear. I guess maybe it was Kiwanis doing the extra one day a few years ago that you were explaining.
Right. They put on a barbecue once a quarter, and
I was just really shocked to learn how limited the meals were. And I also noticed that a city council member would qualify once I turned 62. I guess I can apply with myself. Kidding. So thank you very much for the work that you do.
Oh, you're very welcome.
It's definitely one of the good parts of the Charleston Road corridor there. Backing into Mitchell Park, I think, is also a nice advantage that you have.
Commissioner Moore, did you have a question? You can make sure you speak into the microphone.
Avenidas provides meals, don't they? Or
It's La Comida.
It's La Comida, which is right next door to Avenidas.
do they provide meals to anybody who comes?
They provide meals to, I believe it's to the older population. We pick up lunch meals from La Comida, and we serve them at lunch at Stevenson House. And we have about 12 or 15 people that will participate in that. About half of whom are from the community, older folks in the community come in. And we deliver the meals on Wednesdays to Cubberley. There's a big program at Cubberley for seniors.
Thank you.
Tom, I was wondering too. I took a tour of the I'm totally spacing on the JCC's I forget the name of the seniors. Moldau Center. And they're very focused on nutrition programs there. Is it possible there could be any collaboration between your organization and the Moldau Center, or are they just so completely separate and you have no relationship with them? Because I was thinking their campus isn't far from yours, and I didn't know if there were some economies of scale in terms of providing hot meals.
I've been over there. I've met with the social workers and the directors a couple of years ago, and we talked about collaborating on programs, and nothing ever came of it. It's sort of I'm not sure they're going through a startup phase where they're trying to get that off the ground. So I'm open to discussing that, and I hope something would come from it, but I haven't seen anything yet.
I just know that they, I think they struggle a bit too because they need enough people to be in their meal program. That's why I'm wondering if that's your struggle. Maybe, uniting can be a way to get that critical mass that you might need to make it run economically and efficiently. And I know they also have lunchtime lectures and things that are very interesting for seniors, and they may be willing to extend that out. So it might be something worth looking into.
Sure.
So are there any other comments or questions for Tom about Stevenson House? Well, I bike by it all the time, and I will think about it very differently now that I've had this perspective. And I wonder, is it possible for any of us to ever maybe tour your facility?
All you need to do is come on over, let me know, and if you let me know ahead of time, I'll be able to be sure I'm there, and we could give you the chef's tour.
Right. Well, I will definitely take you up on it, and I think some of my fellow commissioners may be interested as well.
Yeah. I mentioned a little bit before that one of the advantages of hiring a social worker for the director is, despite what happened last week, it's a joy to be there, and there's no 2 days are the same, and just working with older adults. Who, most of whom are just so grateful to have somebody who cares and somebody who listens and someone who shows respect. You go home in the afternoon knowing that you're exhausted, but you know that you've made the world a little bit better. And so that's why Stevenson House is special.
I agree with you. All right, thank you so much.
All right,
Tom.
my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, so before we move on to our next topic on the agenda, I'm going to spring a little bit of a surprise. Thank you, Amy. So tonight's meeting is a little bit bittersweet. We are saying goodbye to two members of the HRC family. One is Commissioner Ezrin, who has served 2 terms with us at 6 years, and who stepped into leadership for a year and a half. And someone I've really personally enjoyed working with very much. So we're sorry that his term is ending and he's moving on, but we wish him well. So we want to say goodbye and farewell and the best of luck to Claude. And also, we're losing another very long-time member, which is Amy Johnson. Amy has been with the HRC for 17 years. She is basically 13. Okay, well, she's basically the bedrock of the HRC. She's the memory of the commission. She knows more than all of us put together, and she keeps us on track, and it's been wonderful. Now, she's leaving us in wonderful hands because Mary Constantino is taking over, and so we all feel good about that. But it is very sad to say goodbye to Amy as well. So the surprise is that we have some goodies in the back, and we're going to take a short recess, invite all of you to come join us for cookies, coffee, and a little bit of cake that I made that I hope turned out. I'm not making any promises there. I also have a really small parting gift for Claude and Amy. I had an olive oil tasting recently, and this was my favorite of the olive oils that I tasted. So one for Amy and one for Claude. And so we'll take just maybe a quick five-minute break or 7-minute break, and we'll run back and get goodies and continue on.
Can I just say a few words?
Oh, sure, of course. I should have known that I should leave time for Claude and the agenda.
I'll
to
be
say a few
brief.
words.
Just want to say when I look back at these past 6 years now, it's been a great honor and a privilege to serve on this commission. First, because I think work with a great team of commissioners, and also I appreciate working with Minka and Amy and now Mary for a couple of meetings. It's been really a wonderful experience. I have to say also that it's very rewarding from my point of view to be of service to the city of Palo Alto and the community in general. And finally, I'll say that in this specific role, it's been very humbling to be in contact with so many highly dedicated, motivated, exceptional individuals who serve in our agencies and do every day, very anonymously sometimes, extraordinary work. So overall, I thought it was a very rewarding experience, and it's probably not the end of my public engagement.
Yeah, we expect to see you soon in some other realm. And so, Amy, did you have anything you want to say, or you just want to get to the cake?
Oh. No, I guess I could just say that I've learned things supporting the HRC that I was never exposed to in my entire life. And it's opened my eyes, and I'm really grateful that I had a chance to work with such great people.
Thank you, Amy. We're really going to miss you. All right, so let's repair to the kitchenette, get our snacks, and then we will return to the meeting.
To make clear that the audience is invited back.
Oh, yeah, and you're all invited to come join us. We've got plenty.
Not bad over you.
feel so bad for her.
At this point, she was talking about how they've just come out with a report the county has on the vulnerable workers. And then a short while later, vignette time here, a short while later, one of the younger commissioners said, "Oh heavens, some version of, I wish we had the money that the county has to do a report." And Commissioner Castaneda turned around and said, "What money?" Meaning that the amount of volunteer work and staff work that's gone into this the report is the value. There's very little money that's gone into it. So I think it was a very good learning experience for all of the commissioners. And I would have other things to say, but I would like to now turn to Commissioner Ezra.
Thank you, Commissioner Moran. In fact, I would like to add to what Commissioner Moran said about this study that the Santa Clara County Commission undertook on what they call workers at risk, which means workers at risk of abuse. Of all of the things we discussed during this meeting, to me that was the most interesting accomplishment of everybody. I thought it stood out as something that was of great interest. We're talking about workers who work in restaurants and hotels, and they gave just a couple of examples. Of, like, for instance, a woman was pregnant, and when her boss learned that, he fired her on the spot. And the reason I'm mentioning this is I was thinking about us, HRC without me in the future. It could be a very interesting project to get the report from the Santa Clara County Commission. It's a fairly long report, but I think it would be useful to get the report, study it, see a bit how they undertook that, and see if it would not be applicable to Palo Alto, because we do have a lot of restaurants, we do have a lot of hotels, and it could be also other professions, not just these two. And I think we would hate to be essentially, going to a restaurant and being served by people who are mistreated. And I see that as something that the Commission could possibly look into for Palo Alto.
Okay, I have to quit eating. So I also attended the HRC countywide breakfast in Mountain View, and it was a smaller meeting than some of the ones that I've attended in the past. At first, I was a little bit concerned because I didn't see some of the familiar faces there, but actually, having a slightly smaller group turned out to yield a very interesting discussion, as my fellow commissioners have mentioned. I think we're able to get into a level of substantive detail that we haven't always been able to do in the rush of everyone trying to introduce themselves and their commission and what they're doing. We're actually able to sit and talk with each other. The Palo Alto Commission, I think, was very well represented. There were 4 of us there. And our Mountain View colleagues, I was very intrigued by the fact that they've done such a great job with recruiting new commissioners who are younger people from multiple different kinds of cultural and ethnic backgrounds. And that seems like something that we really struggle with here in Palo Alto, recruiting people and getting younger people involved at an earlier age. So Commissioner Stone being our one notable exception. So I really would love to learn more from our colleagues about how they do their community outreach, because I think they've got some trick to it that we maybe could learn. I'm always glad when we have a chance to interface with our county level colleagues, because I think they do some things in San Jose that are very fascinating, for example, with the reports that have been mentioned, and we just don't seem to always be on their radar, and I think we don't always get those communiques when they go out. So they did mention to us an upcoming film that will be shown in Sunnyvale that they really recommended we see, and I hope that Kim Castro and Miriam will communicate with Minka. They said that they would and let us know, but I always feel like those links in the chain sometimes don't hold up over the course of the year, and then we reconnect at the breakfast, and then the link seems to get a little bit broken again. So I hope this time that we'll stay in better touch with them and really start to build a relationship at the county level, because I think that all the HRCs pulling together maybe can help identify and address some issues that affect all of Santa Clara County in ways that individual cities simply cannot do. So that's kind of my hope going forward. Did anybody who was there or not there have a question? Commissioner Moore?
Well, no, I just wanted to add one other thing that I can think of. Well, first of all, I as I said before, Miriam Castaneda, who I'm hoping to work with more coming in the future, is very interested in trying to tie the different Northern California commissions together. But another thing I just wanted to mention, the way Commissioner Ezra mentioned the report on the vulnerable, is I found Mountain View has had these civility roundtable events that perhaps some of you have been to or have heard about. But I find that to be able to do it, it actually resonated a bit with me about the our Palo Alto, which is to create community by trying to get, I went to another discussion recently at the Women's Club where they talked about how democracy is conversation. To try to get, these civility roundtable events where you get on a particular topic, you get people to come in and try to share ideas in whatever way you might want to do that, I thought was wonderful.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I would love to see us consider doing something similar to that in Palo Alto, or maybe even in partnership with Mountain View. So I think there might be some good topics that overlap between the two communities, and we are such good neighbors. That might be something really to look into going forward. So I hope we'll have some more time to spend with our colleagues. Mm-hmm.
It's one thing I'd like to point it out. We have Mr. Harry Adams, a gentleman from the county, who actually was involved with the homeless housing issue in San Jose, and then it strikes me because the problem is much larger. There are a lot more homeless in San Jose, and they have different problems. he even mentioned there are some homeless, they cannot stay in the shelter because they have their pets, and the pets are so important. So we may be able to learn from them what they are handling this issue, because they are more experienced in this area than and our homeless is according to official is about 150 some.
Definitely. Another thing I noticed at the breakfast was that many of the commissioners outside of our commissioner were new. A lot of people said, this is my first year, this is my first term, this is the first. That was why we saw so many new faces, which was exciting. At the same time, I realized, I think the Palo Alto HRC, we are becoming the grizzled veterans of the HRCs on the peninsula, but that's actually kind of cool, because I think we do have some experience and some things that we can bring to the table as well. So I'd love to see a mix of that, on our commission and on theirs, of people who are more experienced and also some newer, younger people coming in with their own perspectives and their own ideas. So I think that's important for there to be engagement across the community. So any other questions or comments about the HRC breakfast? And for those of you who didn't make it, I'm so sorry that you weren't there, but it's every year, and so hopefully you'll have a chance to go. One of the future ones.
You hosted last year.
We hosted last year, and I don't know if we can toss our hat in the ring and offer to host it again, or whether it's every third year. Sometimes it's a little territorial with these folks.
I thought I saw in the high-level notes that I was emailed that Santa Clara County was going to host next year.
That's offered by SCC to host networking event next year.
And that's always a bummer for us, because it's so hard to go south at that time of the day, and the traffic is so bad. So I always think they should let us host it, and they should have to come the reverse commute, but not going to happen. Well, in my fantasy, it's an easier commute. All right, so if there's no other questions or comments on the breakfast, let's move off and do our ad hoc subcommittee updates. I'll start off by talking about my subcommittee, which is on the HISRAP funding. We have been working on a supplemental needs assessment since the beginning of the year. So we had a meeting last month where we went through page by page, HISRAP grantee by HISRAP grantee, reviewing the responses that we got from our supplemental human needs assessment survey and identifying some additional information that we wanted to gather, and then assigning the commissioners the task of following up with those particular agencies. So the plan is for that subcommittee to meet next week. So Claude is not quite done. He's done with the major HRC meetings, but he has one more meeting that he owes me before he rolls off. And at that time, see where we are in terms of the follow-up, and then figure out some next steps that we want to take in terms of identifying funding needs for HISRAP going forward. So I can just say for myself, I have, I think, 4 agencies I need to follow up with. I've been mostly working on things with Envision Shelter Network, which has had some recent kind of unexpected shortfalls, and so that's consumed most of my time to date, but I hope to be in touch with the rest of the agencies this week. And I know Commissioner Stone, do you want to update us on what you've been doing with your agencies? I know you sent me an email, but just kind of tell us briefly.
After a little bit of work tracking all 4 down, I was able to schedule a phone interview with the heads of all the nonprofits, the 4 that I had to discuss with, and I got some really good answers. Got them to elaborate on some of the answers they gave in the supplemental report, as you and Claude well know, was sometimes a little scarce. But now I feel pretty good about their answers, and was able to get some really good facts. I think it's going to really help us when we put together that report this summer.
Thank you. And so, Commissioner Eswin, did you have anything you wanted to add about I know you did at least one of the follow-ups.
Yeah, I did one, and I have 2 more coming this week, and the 4th one I'm still trying to schedule. So hopefully, by the time we meet, it should be all done. I've been essentially trying to ask very specific projects, simple projects that would be incremental, that would be in Palo Alto, benefiting the Palo Alto population, and put a dollar figure for that. So at least we have something tangible to put on the table in terms of unmet needs also.
Yes. We did feel as a subcommittee it was important to try to quantify where the shortfalls were and what types of projects or programs additional funding could be used for, so that when we go to the Finance Committee, they'll have a sense of what we're asking for, why we're asking for it, and what the money will go toward. And hopefully that'll be very clear. So that's where my subcommittee is. I know Daryl had to leave, and so I don't know, is there anyone else on her subcommittee that could speak to what she's up to in terms of, I know she's updating the HRC brochure. Does anyone else know what's going on with that?
That's what she's doing, and she's doing it on her own, so we haven't met.
Okay. Okay, I mean, so, the other subcommittee?
Teresa and I?
Yeah. Do you want to say something? Okay, I'll start. Yeah, I went away in early March, so before I went, I start to summarize what we learned from those from the meetings with housing personnel and also from the housing element. So I wrote a very short, concise report and then delivered to both to our chair and that Commissioner Biccardi, and then because I was away for like the whole month of March, so when I came back, we communicate by email, and then Commissioner Biccardi did a very good job to put his part, which is very well written in terms of the background research he did, demographic and the economic situation of the population in Palo Alto, and to combine with the part I wrote, but we haven't finalized yet. So he has some very good suggestions. I just revised it and then sent it over this afternoon. So we're going to be work on it a little further and try to work out to answer the question, which is what can we add to the current status? What are the unique ideas and recommendations we can give to the situation? So it takes some time, and it's very difficult work, especially for me because I'm really slow in social sciences. so Commissioner Biccardi is really nice and tried to help me learn, but appreciate it. So
I guess what's impressive about our task, which is to figure out how the Human Relations Commission can effectively advocate for more low-income housing, is that this is really a very simple problem. There are more people than there is housing, and a very complex problem in that there are hundreds of people who have their finger in this pie, and a lot of regulations, a lot of technicalities, not much money, a lot of social turmoil over where to put housing when there might be a place to put it. And so what we need to do is to keep working on where can the case be made, how best can the case be made so that it will reinforce the work that's going on with the housing element and with the comprehensive plan update. The facts are, I think, compelling. And I doubt very many people in Palo Alto know that 20% of the population has incomes below $50,000, and 10% have incomes below $25,000. And that's well within the low income or the very low income range. Matter of fact, the low income range goes up to income of $70,000 or $80,000. So there are a lot of people in Palo Alto who fit in that category. And one of the things I'd like to do, I'm not sure how to do it, is to find out how many jobs are there in Palo Alto, the salary of which is in those low-income ranges. Because a lot of people talk about how Palo Alto has a population of 65,000 who live here, but that during the day there are 110 or 120,000. And a lot of those people are people who come here to work. And many of them can't afford to live here. Well, that's a situation that we ought to be, I think, much more sensitive to than we are. And so I hope one of the things that the HRC can do is to help make the community more sensitive and have an increasing level of responsibility and obligation for economic diversity in housing. So that's where we are. We still have work to do, and I'm glad we have until, summer of 2014 or 2024 to do it.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioners Chen and Bicchetti, for your update. And I know I always forget Commissioner Moran, who's got her own special project working with the county. Do you have an update for us?
Not this time, I have no update.
Okay.
Thank you, though, I appreciate it.
Okay, and Commissioner Chen, I know you also have kind of a special project doing outreach to the immigrant community. Did you have any update on that?
Oh, yes, I do. Actually, I met with Claudia.
Make sure it's on.
I met with her for coffee, like last week. it was wonderful. You know, it finally got to meet each other, and then we had big plans, of course. And then, so the first step I think I could help is to communicate with a group of ladies who do exercise at a Catholic school, at Elizabeth Seton School, almost every week during the weekday, different classes. And I would say around 20 ladies each day. And unfortunately, the teacher, Sandy Cho, who is now in Taiwan, so she's not available. But I've arranged with the organizer. Her name is Teresa Sun. So, and then she got back to me. She said, well, when Sandy comes back, and then all of us should have a breakfast with Claudia. So Claudia had replied she's very glad to have it. So I contact her again in the middle of May so we can get together.
Great, thanks.
It's a little bit mature ladies, but they're very good.
Seasoned. Yes, experienced, highly.
At least she didn't say grizzled.
I'm never going to live that down. All right, so does anyone else have any other updates on their subcommittee or special project? Make sure I got everybody. Okay, great. All right, let's move on then to reports from officials. Do we have any commissioner reports? Commissioner Bicchetti?
This is a report, not as me as a commissioner, but just good news in that our police chief, Dennis Burns, was awarded one of the Tall Tree Awards last Wednesday at the ceremony, and it was really a nice ceremony to be at. And after he was introduced by Pastor Baines from East Palo Alto, even before he got to speak, there was a standing applause through the house of 400 or so people, recognizing what a terrific chief we have. On that, the Homeless Services Task Force, that group is concentrating on trying to make more public and more engaging information about homelessness during the next election campaign, so that candidates for the city council will have no excuse for being unaware of what the situations are, and questions will be put to them about what they might do to help Palo Alto create more housing, because that's really the key for getting rid of homelessness, and then what else might be done to work with those who are unhoused to, as Envision Shelter Network is doing, put them on a path to increased independence. The Citizens Housing Panel, on which I represent the HRC, is working its way through the housing element part of the comprehensive plan, and at its next meeting, it will be examining where the sites might be in Palo Alto on which to place low-income housing. Just a couple of other announcements. There is a lot going on about housing. The Our Palo Alto program will have a program on housing at 3 o'clock at Lucy Stern on the 26th of April. There are also two other meetings about housing. One on the 28th, 3 to 5 in the afternoon at Lucy Stern, and the other on the 30th, 6 to 8 at the Elks Club. And these will be opportunities for people to both learn about and to have input into how Palo Alto can do better on its housing availability for income levels, all kinds of income levels.
Thank you, Commissioner Bicchetti. Does anyone else have a commissioner report? Commissioner Ezra?
Yeah, it's just a quick reminder. You probably all receive invitation, but this Thursday at 4 o'clock, there's a meeting about the micro enterprise program. And you might remember, we are part of launching this with CDBG funds. And personally, I look very much forward to see the results of this very exciting program. And I hope that many of you will be able to attend as well.
Commissioner Stone?
Yeah, I attended the last Palo Alto mediation program meeting on March 20th, and they were putting together what I thought was a great presentation at Pali, where they were going to be meeting with high school students inside their social studies classes, and basically teaching them about what mediation is, giving them a little demonstration of it, and then putting on their own mock mediation. And so that sounded really exciting. I didn't quite get the dates for it, so I know the next time I go back, I'm looking forward to hearing how that goes. And then the other issue that came up, which I wanted to bring up and ask if anyone could answer this for me so I can get back to them, was they're going through the recruitment process right now. They need 4 to 5 more mediators. And essentially they want to, I guess each training for mediators cost approximately $500. And so they wanted me to go back and find out how they can ask the city for more money to be able to take up the cost of that. So I don't know if anyone has that answer or can answer that now for me. Open-ended.
I'm going to punt this one to the mayor.
It's budget season. Your question, Hamika?
They would. I mean, they'd have to, if they wanted to include that in the contract that we have with them and ask for that reimbursement as part of their contract with us, they could be in discussion with me on that.
Okay.
But it is budget season right now, and I think we just started a 3-year contract with them. We're in our first year of that, so they need to talk to me. I can't promise anything.
What I recall, I went through a mediation training that was associated with the mediation, the Palo mediation program that you're talking about, and it was a $300 to $500 class with Marvin Schwartz. I believe.
That's the one they use.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
That's the one they require, and I think it is $400 or $500. So it's pretty pricey. So when you volunteer, then you have to pay all this money for the training. So I can see how that might be an impediment to recruitment. So we'll see, if they can work something out. Any other commissioner reports? Right, I have one as well. A few weekends ago, I did a ride-along with the police department. That was absolutely fascinating. I rode with an officer from 7 p.m. till 1 in the morning. And I saw parts of Palo Alto I have never seen, which is fascinating. I learned a great deal. We started off with a tour of the police headquarters, and even though I've lived here forever, I don't think I've ever actually been all through the police headquarters, because I've been too law-abiding to really know what happens over there. But I was shocked at how run down and crumbling parts of it are, the lack of storage space, the roof is leaking, it was a rainy night. It's just terrible. And I've always been a supporter of the fact that we need better infrastructure in the city and that we need a new police headquarters. But having seen the police headquarters up close and personal with the leaky roof, I really 1,000% am behind it, and I hope all of you will be too, because I think that is desperately needed. I was very impressed with all the contingency planning they have in case the earthquake hits and all 8 stories of City Hall collapse on top of our police department. They have basically a mobile RV that will be the command center if that occurs, because they can't count on the building being intact. So it's just incredible, all the contingency planning that they've done. Then we went ahead and got in the patrol car, which is basically like a NASA cockpit of a space shuttle mission. It's just incredible. There is a computer and a docking station, a GPS dashboard. I mean, it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And the officers can see where all the other units are, and they can be at each other's aid within seconds or minutes at the most. So we had a really interesting time going around Palo Alto. The officers that I talked to were very forthcoming about the types of interactions they have with the public and what some of the issues are. And it was actually a relatively slow night, but then we did have a very interesting incident occur where the officer, and again, I was very impressed that he was able to notice so many things, what with the computer here and the GPS there and driving along, but we saw a car that was double parked on the wrong side of the road. Now, I would have honked and just gone on, being slightly annoyed, but to the officer, this was a real red flag that something was wrong. It turned out that the person driving that illegally double parked car was, 1, drunk, and 2, driving on a suspended license. So just on a quick hunch, the officer was able to get that person off the road and process him and then release him to a sober person who could get him home safely. But that could have been really a serious issue. This man, when he pulled his car over, he drove up onto the sidewalk. So he was really very impaired and shouldn't have been driving. So I was very impressed that this officer was so well trained that out of just one little thing being slightly off with the car, he could just kind of zero in on the fact that something maybe more serious was going on. He was extremely solicitous and respectful to the young men that were pulled over, who were all African American, and I was really pleased to see how well that was handled in our community. And even the young man said to me, because he didn't know quite who I was, and for a while they thought I was under arrest too, when we were sort of sharing the patrol car. So he said the police, quote, in this town used to be much worser than they are now, and that he really thought that the officers had done right by him, and he felt, very grateful that they did not impound his car and that they were able to turn him over to a sober person once he was processed, so that everybody who was in the vehicle could get home safely, and that the car which didn't belong to him could go back to its rightful owner. So I thought they handled it great, and it really gave me an up-close and personal look at the police department, and I'm glad I did that, and I would like to invite all my fellow commissioners who have not done it yet to sign up for a ride-along. I think it would be really, really interesting and educational for you, and I just really encourage you to do that at some point when you're on the commission. So that is my report. So anybody else have anything else they want to say about any commissioner reports? Okay, and then do we have a report from our mayor, our council liaison report?
Sure, I was just looking at things on the calendar, and first off, our Palo Alto kicks off on the 23rd, which is Wednesday, not the 26th. And the demographers are, I guess you said Stephen Levy, and then the PAUSD demographer is going to be there to kind of tell us about who we are, what we are, what we might be in the future, and looks, and we do hear this at all levels. When I'm at a national Northern California Power Agency Commission, the whole state is gearing up for twice as many people in California, and how do we power up everything for them? So there's a lot going on to look to the future. We're also, I noticed on the 21st, and I think that this is subject to change, there's going to be a Buena Vista hearing. But I do know that there's always a petition to ask for delay on that.
Right, that was changed, actually. It's going to be 3 evenings now in May. I was going to give that update. So I'm trying to get some greater understanding of if it's a continual discussion each night or if a different aspect.
This is a hearing, so it's
Right.
not up to us. This is
Right, it's the hearing officer.
hearing officer.
Yes.
It's nothing. We hire the hearing officer, but I don't even think we choose him. Do we choose him?
It's a contract. It's already been
Yeah.
determined.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So the Monday meeting from 10 to 12 is canceled.
That's correct.
it's been moved.
It's been moved, so I'll have those
Moved.
dates.
Nothing's canceled on this. It's just moved.
I will forward the new information. I was going to give it orally, and I'll forward it to the HRC tomorrow.
Yeah, and then also, housing is doing more outreach. They're doing something on the 24th in the Fireside Room at Lucy Stern. They're just really trying to do as much outreach as possible. There's, I think what is going on the entire month of May, the Finance Committee will be looking at things. They're looking at his rep tomorrow night, though.
Correct.
So tomorrow night gets approval, gets going. And I don't know if anybody is here to speak to what's going on or not, but we've got two new members to finance. Liz and Karen are new to finance this year, so this will be their first time going through the Finance Committee approval. And then the other things that are on our agenda are the California Avenue Focus Plan for the housing element. We're having a comprehensive plan. We're having, it looks like the housing element is going to be a little easier to do because they had not relocated some of or identified some of the zoning that was done previously as part of our housing element. So it won't be as dramatic, although it still will be. And there still are newspaper articles that talk about the only reason why we do this is to get transportation dollar grants, which is not true. This is a state regulation and mandate. And there are big sticks out there if we do not hit our marks this year. I know that that's been covered well with this committee. And just a lot of drama going on with not getting creek permits for the flood areas, the flood insurance that the feds are requiring people to have. And if you have a home loan, you have to have your flood insurance. is going up and up and up steeply. So that's a real critical issue for the city to get that relieved. And just more of the same. I wish there was something exciting I could tell you. Just a lot of more of the same, a lot of traffic and parking issues that we're trying to resolve, and you know, we are stumbling over our prosperity, and yet we have, you know, a lot of angst about things that are going on. So we're navigating all of that. And I think one of the big things that's kind of fun is that it's Neighbors Abroad's 50th anniversary for Oaxaca. So we've got a little delegation going down. I'm going to go down with my family, but my family has a lot of connections in Oaxaca, so that's been fun. And we have, Stanford's reached out, and they have a program down there that they do medical treatment with their undergraduates and stuff. So it's in a clinic, and so it's very interesting to see that element of Palo Alto as well. And we have commission interviews on Wednesday. So some of you are up for renewal, and I think that's, can you think of anything more? I'm looking at the calendar, I don't see anything except for lots and lots of meetings.
When is the Palo Alto?
23rd is the kickoff, and that is going to be at the downtown library. It's called Who Are We?
And what time is that, Mayor Shepherd?
That's at 6.
Okay, and is that the one where Sid Espinoza is taking part? Okay.
Who are we? How is our population changing? What will the city's demographics look like over the next 10 to 20 years? The answers. They have the answers to these questions. Future demand for housing and schools may ultimately change the way we think about ourselves. So, and David Harris from the Institute from the Future is also going to be one of the speakers, and Duncan from Unified School District. And, you know, they're tackling all of this, you know, in the framework of our Palo Alto. And I'm glad that you, Teresa, I'm glad you've been able to make contact with Claudia. We've also run into another woman from India who is interested in reaching out to her diaspora here to get people active in government and civic engagement and creating the future for their community instead of leaving all of that on the shoulders of 9 council members and commissioners and that type of thing. So it's really, I think I was at the same program you were at, and I was really struck by many of the comments that were made by people who do community conversations, and we're doing everything exactly the way we should. It's going to be messy. Democracy is messy, so we're going to guarantee that it's going to be messy. But we're also going to take action. We're actually going to have to set new policy, and hopefully the policy will help frame how we get to operate as a community and not take away that ability to be community members and to create community. That's our job. I mean, that's our job as citizens, not as city council. So.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Shepherd. We always learn a lot from your updates. And now we find
Well,
out
this
about more
is-
meetings we need to attend, which
Yeah,
is
well, they are in you know, it's all, we're all learning about how to listen to each other better. And one of the things that was a good comment at Silicon Valley Leadership State of the Valley this last year was that inclusion is mandatory. So we need to, that's part of leadership. So we're trying to do that in a way that isn't burdensome. I don't want to call it a light approach, but when we do have these connections where people come out, trying to gather as much information as we can so we can put it into feedback form so that we can really be listening to what people are saying, as opposed to some that just want to advocate for one certain feature, when in fact many people, many people here in Palo Alto are very happy, very satisfied with this community, consider it to be a well-operating city, and know that we have stuff we have to do, but we're doing it. We've taken it up, and we're going to find out how to get past these next hurdles. So that is an important thing to say, because I think staff feels that they want to feel that they've thrown their careers into the right city to work with. So that's I'm not trying to point this to you, but it's just in general, there needs to be much better camaraderie with the fact that the city staff is really working on these issues. They're trying to take it up and work on it, and with us collaboratively.
Very well said. And on that note, I will ask our staff liaison, Minka, for her report.
I have several things. A week from Friday is the Human Rights Organization Conference. So we have Commissioners Chan, Savage, Moran, Mary, and myself. The only one I didn't hear back is Commissioner Stone, if you wanted to attend as well.
When is that?
It's all day on the 25th. It's from like Friday the 25th. We need to know in the next day or so.
Great. I'll check my schedule and get back.
Yeah, Mary has made reservations for the rest of us. Other updates, I was on a committee to look at the applications for the RFP for intensive case management for the homeless program that we are going to be doing in collaboration with the county housing vouchers. So I am not at liberty to say the agency that was selected, but that will be made public soon. So that is an update on that. Again, yes, we will be interviewing the prospective HRC commissioners. We have 2 spots. We have 3 candidates, so that's Wednesday starting at 6. Send you all an update, but if you can get back to me if you want to be a dignitary to march at the beginning of the Mayfet Children's Parade on May 3rd. So we would welcome you all to do so. It's a very tangible way to show the children in our community that we care about them. So it's developmental assets at work by attending that event. I would love to see you there. On more serious notes, we had our meeting with the Policy and Services Committee. Commissioners, our chair and vice chair were there to support me. The chair, Onan, stood next to me and helped me give the report. The HRC recommendation was not supported. There was an alternative recommendation that the committee is forwarding for the full council's consideration, and that would be to direct staff to do an RFP for senior services and child care subsidy services to take PAC and Avenidas out of the HISRAP process. It was a 2-to-1 vote with council members Klein and Price voting in favor of that recommendation, and council member Schmidt voting against it, and council member Scharf, was not in attendance that evening. So that will go to the full council. At this point, it's scheduled for May 12th, but that's could be changed, but at this point it's May 12th, and I will continue to give you updates on that. As the mayor mentioned, the Buena Vista issues is not going to be on Monday the 21st. It's 3 evenings, May 12th, 13th, and 14th. I will forward that information to you, and it looks like those meetings will all take place at Avenidas. So I will forward that on to you. Tomorrow night, HISRAP is going in front of the Finance Committee. This is just more of, it's kind of a pro forma. This is the second year for the 2-year contracts and the 4th year for the 6-year contracts. So it's more of an opportunity to, allow the agencies to highlight some of their accomplishments that they have done. It's an opportunity for us just to remind the council members what the agencies are doing and what some of their successes have been. So it is the same budget amount as last year, because it was last year we did approve it. The council did approve it as a 2-year budget. So this is just kind of asking for them to include the same budget amount in the Community Service Department budget for these HISRAP agencies for next year. So I think that is all the items that I had.
It's great. All right. So do we have any agenda items for next time?
I have not heard back from Judge Manley's staff. I will call
We've got to
again.
track him down. I really want to have him come
I just
speak
think
to us.
I'll need to stop by his house, but I won't do that. But I will continue to work on that.
You're going to stalk Judge Manley?
I
Is that a
will,
good idea?
no, I did not say that.
Okay.
The YMCA,
Okay.
every single day.
Oh, really?
You see him? He comes to our Y?
I've seen him at our road occasionally, but it's the Ross Road one.
Oh.
And it's like a half hour, we're talking, curves kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay, I will go no further.
Well, I think for our next agenda item, I would propose that we get a debriefing from those of you who go to the Caro conference, who spend the day there, and let us know what you learned about human rights. We'll need another housing speaker.
Miss that next meeting. I'll be out of town.
Okay. Okay.
So Commissioner Bicchetti and Commissioner Chen will not be here.
I'm sorry, what's the day of the next meeting?
May 8th.
And right now, I can't think of anything else. Does anyone have any other ideas what we need to talk about in May?
We'll probably, if there's a continued report about the subcommittees.
Yeah, probably, and an update on those. And I don't know if we're going to need to have a Buena Vista update of any kind for the hearings that are coming up.
Those will be after our next meeting, because our next meeting, what was the 8th, did someone say? The
Okay.
8th, and those are starting the 12th.
Okay. All right, well, I think we'll probably think of things that'll bubble up as we get closer to the date, but that's what I have on the top of my mind now. All right, so unless there is anything, anyone else is there that we need to do, then we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
I want to say how very pleased I am. I'm Lois Salo, and I'm with Women's International Peace and Freedom, 99-year-old peace group. And in addition to which, I'm with Stop the Ban. I'm very delighted that the commission is taking up the homeless issue. These are really very important issues. I would like to say that I would like to recommend to our mayor that she rejoin Mayors for Peace, because they are asking for the sorry, old age,
I think I've already joined it. I've already joined a number of things, but they don't seem to get the paperwork done.
Oh, okay.
So the Bloomberg's nonviolence thing, and so I just, please ask them if in fact, they haven't already joined again.
Okay, I'm very delighted to hear
It's a
that.
personal thing, though, so each time the mayor, so I don't know if they need to have a resolve from the whole city council, that we just stay on there. But there seems to be paperwork issues with some of the organizations. I think I've done it 3 times.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm very happy to hear
I
that.
finally said, okay.
Because they
Signed
are,
up 3 times, I'm done.
yes, they are emphasizing cut the military budget and use it for building housing, which is one leg of what we absolutely need. It's the least amount of housing that the federal government has built in years. I was delighted to hear Tom talk about Stevenson House, and we obviously need at least another Stevenson House and probably several more. I think that another leg of this is that business should be supporting building housing too, so that there are 3 legs of this. And I think that Palo Alto, I understand, is getting some more money than they expected, and that I would like to see, instead of building a new golf course or public art, which are both very nice, but low-income Our little, yeah.